Hey, welcome back. Today we are continuing with our How to Grow series. So like I said in previous videos, we are focusing on one flower at a time. When I was a new flower farmer, I thought it was so overwhelming to sort of learn all of these varieties and not knowing when to start them, what conditions they wanted. And I found it really beneficial to just sort of plug away at one variety at a time. So today we're talking about strawflowers. Strawflowers get their name from the sound that they make, not from their appearance. They do not resemble straw in their appearance. It is the sound that they make when you're touching the petals where they get their name. Strawflowers are making a comeback. Apparently they were big in the 80s. I was very young in the 80s, so I don't remember. But thanks to new cultivated varieties, they are available in an assortment of colors, which makes them very, very popular right now. Of course, the other comeback would be dried flowers, and that is what strawflowers are also known as. Not only can you use strawflowers in your fresh bouquets, they will have an extremely long vase life for that, but you can also use them as a dried flower because they are known as an everlasting flower. I thought it would be fun today, since we are stuck in the grow room, to show some of my dried flowers. Here we have some of my strawflowers, and I thought it would be helpful to show you some of them because harvesting for these can be a little bit tricky. If you see this orange one right here in the center, this one I harvested too late, unless you're going for that look. If you want that orange center on some of them, you can see some strawflowers have the yellow center in the middle, whereas this white one here doesn't have the yellow center. In order to mask that yellow center, picking a strawflower at this stage right here, just when the first or second row of leaves, or they're also known as bracts, when they start to release, that is the proper time to harvest them if you don't want the blown out center like that. So I love strawflowers, not only for dried flowers, of course I love them as dried flowers as well, but I find that they make a very, very good freshly cut flower as well. And here is a little flower clip that I made. You can see they last extremely long. This was made last summer, but stored in the proper conditions without sun, I think they will last for years and years and years. Now this actually reminds me of the 80s. I do remember my mom having one of these, a larger one, above one of our living room windows when I was a child. So these floral swags are also returning in popularity, and I made this sort of muted version of one, and you can see the strawflowers are there in the middle. And again, depending on when you harvest, the bracts continue to open up. So this one you can see is the blown out one, whereas some of the side shoots were not completely open, so they didn't blow out after harvest. Okay, so that is what they look like in their dried form. Now let's get into how to grow these beauties. So strawflowers are native to Australia, and I really think it's helpful to think about where they grow natively in order to mimic those growing conditions. So knowing they come from Australia, that helps us to understand why they are a short-lived perennial in zones 8 and up, whereas for us who are in the lower zones, 7 and down, they are just a cold, hardy annual. Me growing in zones 4 and 5, I find myself starting them now, mid-March, which brings me about six and a half weeks before my last frost, which is early May. Some of my favorite colors to grow are silvery rose, apricot, the pastel mix, monstrosum, which offers a very large bloom. Seashells mix is also another one of my favorites. Any whites are also beautiful to grow. Now to share the varieties I'm growing with you today, I am growing some mixes, and usually I don't love mixes, but these were just such a great deal at the dollar store. Like, as you can see, they have a lot of reds and oranges and yellows, but for the price, I think they are worth growing, but these would definitely not be my top choice. Some of the top ones, like I said, I listed, but these are the ones I'm growing this year. So bright rose, I'll insert a photo along as well. So bright rose I'll be growing today, and I think there's quite a few seeds in this one. Another large packet, this one's massive. This is the Seashells mix, and I just love this mix. This one offers really, really good choices if you want sort of just one packet. This one gives you a lot of good variety. Again, the monstrosum tall mix. So this one is said to get even larger than your typical strawflower. This will be interesting because strawflowers do get quite large for me. Vintage white, everybody needs a white cut flower, I think. And then a apricot peach mix, another one of my favorites. Love this one. This one pairs well with almost everything. So straw flowers benefit from transplanting. Of course, you can direct sow almost anything, but I find getting them started earlier produces flowers much earlier. Usually very early summer they are blooming, and they will bloom until your first frost, or sometimes even after if it's just a light frost. So my preferred method of starting seeds is soil blocking. If you're interested, let me know and I can make a video just about soil blocking and seed starting. But I find that this is the most efficient way for space and time and materials. So I definitely love using soil blocks. Strawflowers are a very small seed. I'll open them up and show you. I find surface sowing them on the top of the soil block is fine. They do need light to germinate. So placing them on top of the pre-moistened soil I find is great for germination. I've never had an issue with that. And then I usually do a light dusting of vermiculite as well, which helps with dampening off or any fungal growth that you want to deter. And it does not block the light which they need to germinate, like I said. Okay, so there you can see very tiny seeds. And these seeds I just bought this year, so I'll be just doing one seed per soil block. I find germination on these is quite high. Johnny says that the germination rate is a 94% for these, so I would agree. I would say for the most part they will all germinate. So when your nighttime temperatures, like I said, are at least 10 degrees Celsius or about 55 Fahrenheit, it'll be safe to plant these out. And spacing I find is fine for 6 inches apart, but we are in a very windy and warm and dry climate, so I don't deal with any fungal or any mildew issues. But if you are, it is recommended to plant these about 9 to 12 inches apart. Okay, so that is done for vintage white. And the heat needed to germinate for these is about 18 to 20 degrees Celsius, 65 to 70 degrees Fahrenheit, and you will see germination typically within 7 to 10 days. Okay, now working on the monstrosum. And it is not needed to pinch these flowers. They are a cut and come again, but I find that they don't actually need the pinching. As you harvest them, they will naturally branch out themselves, so I don't think it is entirely necessary. Although I also don't see it hurting. You will just be prolonging your blooms a little bit longer. All right, now the seashells mix. This one is new to me, but I really liked the mixture of colors this one offered. I've grown similar colors, but to have it all in a mix was very convenient. And I bought my seeds from Johnny's, and this was actually a really good deal. So that was a bonus. Okay, last one I'll do. I don't think I'll work on the dollar store ones today. If I have room, maybe I'll just direct sow those later in the season as I'm running out of room. So this is the bright rose. Definitely one of my favorites for a pink option. Okay, that's about 320 little straw flower plants that I'm very, very excited for. All right, let's get into a little bit more of the growing once they are planted outside. Just a couple things to note when you're harvesting a straw flower. The petals or the bracts will continue to open after cutting. So making sure they are at the desired stage is very, very important. Some of them can have that blown out center. Sometimes the center is yellow, sometimes the center is white. So depending on the look you're going for, harvesting your straw flower when just the first or second layer of petals has started to release from the bud. That is your best choice if you do not want that blown out look. Drying these flowers is very, very easy. Hanging them upside down for a week or two in a cool, dry place is typically the most you have to think about. Once they are dried, you can use them for years and years for decorating. Vase life is indefinitely, if you think about it, but the stem does seem to rot when it's left in a vase for too long. So I would say 10 to 12 days for a vase life for a straw flower is about typical for me. They are very productive plants. They are cut and come again. Of course, as much as you are harvesting and or deadheading, if you need to, will just ensure that you're going to get blooms until your first fall frost. And another thing to note is that the blooms do close at night. So if you are harvesting in the very early morning, which is recommended, the coolest time of day is usually recommended for flower harvesting so that they don't wilt in the vase. But just to note that if you are getting up before the sun has been up for an hour or two, your blooms will be closed and it will be harder to indicate what the maturity is of that bloom before you harvest it. So waiting for the sun to be up for at least an hour, but it's still cool in the morning is the desired time to harvest. Knowing that these are grown in Australia and native to Australia, that means that they are a little bit more drought tolerant. These plants do not want soggy roots, just light watering or deep, infrequent watering would probably be best. They can tolerate poor soil conditions, but I would say fertilizing at least once a month with a low, slow release fertilizer would be a good idea, or just adding some good nutrients to your soil. Some fresh compost would be great when you're planting these plants out. Well, that wraps up our straw flower sowing. So exciting to think about some of these flowers and the coming months that we can just harvest and make endless bouquets from them. Thank you so much for joining me, and I'll see you next time. Bye.